Hi everybody, it's Hunter
And Joe.
and we are the two old men at heart. We just got back to our room
Yes.
from our excursion today. We are in Dominica.
Yes, as they say here on the island.
As they say on the island, Dominica. And so it was a brand new port for us today,
Yes.
and we went on an excursion. Let me tell you all about it.
Okay.
So we went to a waterfall, and we went river tubing. The river tubing part was actually
The
a good
river
time.
river tubing part was a lot of fun. They made it fun. It wasn't just kind of sailing down the water. River, you had slow parts where you kind of meandered along, and they grouped you up, and then they had rapid parts that you don't typically see on river tubing that were almost like whitewater rafting. Not really. You were in a couple of, a foot of water, but it definitely moved far quicker and bounced you around.
Yeah. So we actually really enjoyed this, and I was a little nervous about it because I was looking at reviews on the Holland America Line website before we came on the cruise, and I was looking at them for this specific, because we had already booked this excursion, and I was looking and I was reading some of them, and they weren't such great reviews. And I can understand why. If that river had not much, if that
Much
river
less.
had less water in it than it had today, and
they,
not by much.
No, and they told us it's been abnormally wet lately.
This is normally the dry season.
Yes, and it's been quite wet, especially for this time of year.
It's February.
And it did not have a ton of water in it, so it wouldn't have taken
probably only about 1.5 feet of water.
And it wouldn't have taken but a couple inches of drop before you were really dragging along the bottom.
So the guides really made it fun, though.
They did.
They were dressed in bright orange shirts. You couldn't miss them. And they were talking the whole time, so you couldn't miss them. And they were singing to us. And so they did make it fun. And if you got stuck, because there were rocks along the way, they would come and help push you off if you weren't able to get yourself moving again. And but it was a lot of fun, and you got to link up with other people. We met other people who were on our cruise today because we were linking up with them. We were grabbing a hold of their tubes so we could move together as a group. And then once you got to a faster part, they would sort of slide you down there or let you go so you could kind of go by yourself. And then you would link up again, and so it was.
So that was good. I mean, those were the highlights. The waterfall was a little disappointing.
The waterfall was a little. If you've never seen a waterfall before, I'm sure you'd think it was beautiful. If you live anywhere where there is any elevation and running water, you've seen
waterfalls that were just as nice as what we saw today. So the waterfall was nothing special.
No, it really wasn't. But they did. If you stopped there, and we're gonna give you that little tip, if you eat breakfast. So today's excursion didn't leave until 11:30 in the morning. So either eat a late breakfast or eat a heavy breakfast, or during that stop at Jacko Falls is what it's called. They had some types of food there, and I apologize. I don't have video to show you about that because I didn't take any video.
They did have some sandwiches at the very end too,
and we'll talk about that.
We will.
We haven't got there, so make use of that. If you have to pee then. And then you continue on your way. By the way, it's a long drive.
It is
You're driving through the rainforest, which is part of this excursion. It's listed as part of this excursion. It really shouldn't be. You're just in a van driving on a road.
On a road, yes.
It's not like you're going on a safari. Well, I guess it wouldn't be a safari, but it's not like you're going on a nice rainforest tour.
No,
it's just a very long drive, about an hour and a half.
Their main road across the island, which happens to go through the rainforest.
So, and the rainforest isn't all that spectacular. It's a rainforest. It rains more times than it's not raining. That's why it's called a rainforest. We did not see anything that we got like here on our magnet that we very quickly picked up today. We'll talk about that. We did not see any macaws. They called them parrots, but they're actually macaws. We did not see any wildlife at all. We did not really see very many pretty flowers. It was just a lot of green vegetation.
Yes.
And that was your rainforest. And so that was a little bit of letdown because that is billed as part of this excursion, and it's not really It's not really anything. And then, but once you get past Jacko Falls, you'll go to the next stop, which is where you'll do the river tubing. And by the time we got there, there was a group ahead of us already, and they were doing this traditional Carib show performance that we got to catch the very tail end of. We did not get to see that performance by the time we got there. We had very little time to change. They do have changing rooms there.
A couple, yes.
A few. They do not latch, so you kind of have to hold on to them unless the next person's coming in and they're going to see your bottom.
Yes.
Your bare bottom. So, I'm sorry, I was looking out our balcony window here. We must have turned around because now we can see Dominica we're leaving behind. It's leaving behind.
We're turning and pulling out of port.
Anyway, so you can change there, and they do have restrooms there, but we had so little time by the time we got there because the people, our guides, they wanted to get us in immediately, pretty much as soon as we got off the bus. They wanted to put us in a life vest and a helmet. And we were like, we need to go change first. We didn't have our swim trunks on.
No.
So we went and changed, and by the time we got done changing, there was not time to go to the bathroom because you had to go and listen to their safety presentation, and then you were put in your tube and sent down the river for an hour and a half.
Yes.
So that was, the river part was nice. I did not like being so rushed at the beginning of that part.
No, the organization on the tour company's part was not great at either the beginning or end of the river.
So I was a little upset about that because I did want to go to use the restroom. And I did not get that chance.
No.
And then you went down, and we already told you about going down
the river. Was great.
That was fun. That was the best part. Absolutely the best part of this tour. But then you get to the end. Getting out of your tube and onto land again is not simple.
No.
They have not... And I imagine it's probably very, very difficult for them. They have not made it a soft floor of the river there, and I imagine they probably aren't able to.
Probably not.
I figure that the rocks and whatever are just going to keep, as the river goes, the rocks are going to settle. So, but those are very slippery. Oh, make sure you wear water shoes.
Yes.
Absolutely wear water shoes. Actual water shoes, not flip-flops, not Crocs. Water shoes. You want water shoes for this excursion. It was very difficult. It wasn't difficult getting out of the tube. Of course, you can flip that over pretty easily.
Yes.
But then when you land, you're landing on rocks, and those rocks are very slippery, and they're also jagged. So
yes, there was no
walking,
solid footing.
Right.
And what was underfoot was very slippery.
Mm-hmm.
So.
To get out of the river and onto land again was not very simple.
No, and then you were kind of scrambling up just a riverbank. There were no real stairs. They had kind of carved some
and those get
grooves.
Wet, and then they're slippery and muddy. So that was a little unfortunate too. Here's probably my most annoyed part of this excursion was at the very end after you got back onto land. They did not have restrooms there. They did not have they did not have a changing station there. So you're there, you are wet. You absolutely get wet. You are pretty much soaked on this excursion. And then they expect you to get on a bus and just go back to your ship.
For an hour and a half, yes.
For an hour and a half, riding in this bus, soaking wet. That was not acceptable.
No, that was a problem.
I did not care for that at all. I stood there behind the bus, and I put our big Holland America towel around me, and I slipped down my swim trunks and put on my underwear and my shorts, and I had to pull because of course it was all wet, so it was skin tight, my shirt off, and dry myself off and put this shirt on. I did not appreciate that.
No, and I didn't bother. I dried off enough to switch out my shirt, and that was it. I stayed in my...
You're still in your wet...
Yes, I'm still in my wet swim.
And like I said, they did not have restrooms there either. So when remember I said I had to pee before we left, but there wasn't time. I still haven't peed. I'm back on the ship, and I still haven't gone to pee. So that was not acceptable. I did not appreciate that. But after having a lot of fun on the river, it sort of made me a little more mild. I didn't really make a stink about it at all. But also at the end there, they were serving beer, they were serving rum punch, they were serving some food items. So if you hadn't eaten yet, small sandwich, I don't know what they were. I didn't, and I apologize. I don't have video of that for you because I was annoyed with having to strip in front of everyone to change my clothes. So that was the trip, and then we had to take
drive
the hour and a half the same road.
Yes.
The same road. I thought maybe there was another road that would have been quicker to get back to
but
Port.
There wasn't.
There is not. You have to go back the same way you came. You don't stop at Jacko Falls again, but you have to go back the same way you came, and that's about an hour and a half. We were late
for all
getting
aboard,
to the ship, so here's your pro tip of the day: make sure you book your excursions through the cruise line. If you're doing it outside of the cruise line, make sure they know what time you need to get back to the ship. And here's the thing: there's only one road in and out of this cruise port here in Dominica.
Yes.
There's only one road, and it had major traffic heading back. And so if we were not on a Holland America Line excursion, we would have absolutely missed this ship. It would have gone without us.
Yes.
We didn't. All aboard time was 4:30. We didn't make it back to the ship until almost 5 o'clock.
Yes, and frankly, the ship staff were yelling at us to get on board.
Yes.
We dashed and grabbed a magnet.
They did have little tents set up.
Yes.
Vendors set up right here at the port.
Right here at the gangway.
So as soon as we got off the bus, as soon as it got there, we ran real quick over to one, because they had already, of course, all aboard time was 4:30. They had already started tearing stuff down.
Yes.
So they could go home for the day, and we ran real quick and just picked one up, and so we could
first one we saw, grab,
so we
throw some money at the lady.
Yeah, we didn't even wait for the change because we overpaid her.
Yes, we did.
So then that was when we had walked over there, or ran over there to get that. One of the Holland America Line staff came up behind us like, "Are you on the ship? You need to leave right now." So the end of this trip, the end of this excursion, I was not very happy about. But now we're back, and now we need to get showered,
cleaned
so
up for dinner.
Go to dinner because we skipped lunch again today, and now I'm starving. So that was our trip to Dominica.
Yes, that was the excursion. We'll do recap later, but that was the excursion today.
So thank you all for watching, and be sure to stay tuned for the next video. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell notification. You'll get a new notification every time we upload a new video, and we'll see you next time. Bye!